Take you now to the White House as President Trump hosts German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in the Oval Office. This is the president's first in-person meeting with another world leader since the start of the war on Iran. Let's listen in.
You're half German anyway. The photographers are very violent. It's incredible. They're pretty good fighters.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We have a meeting with a man who's become a friend of mine, and we've known each other for a little while in some very interesting times, and we get along. Our countries get along very well. We have a great affinity for each other, and the Chancellor has been very well received in Germany. He's a very successful man, became the Chancellor of Germany, which is a big deal, and he's doing a very good job. In my opinion, a great job, very popular, and the relationship that we have in trade and everything else has been very strong. We've been able to do our deals, and it's been very strong. We'll obviously be talking a little bit about Iran today, and he's been helping us out. We've been very nice, actually, and that is coming along, as you see, very well. They have no Navy. It's been knocked out. They have no Air Force. It's been knocked out. They have no air detection. That's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out. So we'll see how we do. But we're doing very well. We have a great military, and they're doing a fantastic job. So we'll be talking about that. And we're talking about some very big trade deals. And those, I know, will work out, too. So I just want to say it's a great honor to have you at the Oval Office. The beautiful Oval Office, beautiful White House. It's a special place, even from your standpoint. And you have some very special places, too. And I look forward to being with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for having me here in this Oval Office for the third time now.
Yeah.
Really happy to have the opportunity to speak with you in these challenging times. We are on the same page in terms of getting this terrible regime in Tehran away, and we will talk about the day after, what will happen then if they are out. We have to talk about our trade agreement, which I would like to be in place as soon as possible. And we have to talk about Ukraine. There are too many bad guys in this world, actually, and this is an issue we have to talk about because we all want to see this war coming to an end as soon as possible. But Ukraine has to preserve its territory and their security interests, and, well, we will talk about that.
Right. We will.
Looking forward to that.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you
That's some
for your
interesting.
hospitality. Thank you for letting me spending the night in your guest house.
That's right.
Very, very
good.
Comfortable place.
You liked it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, great place. And a famous place.
That's good. Very famous.
So many former presidents.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very famous place. Any questions?
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, you know, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. I think and now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that, but they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden they had missiles shot in, which shows you the level of evil that we're dealing with. They'll hit people that were actually at least somewhat friendly, and they had no problems with it. Also hitting only civilian places, hotels and apartment buildings, and we're hitting them where it is much more appropriate. We're hitting them very hard, and the big scale hitting goes now. They no longer have air protection. They no longer have any detection facilities at all left, and so they're gonna be in for a lot of hurt. These are bad people. These are people that killed. I guess it's 35,000. It's coming out 35,000 over the last 3 weeks. Protesters, 35,000 violently killed. So these are bad people, and the leader of the pack is gone. And as you know, 49 people were taken out in the first hit, and I guess there was another hit today on the new leadership, and it looks like that was pretty substantial also. So they're getting hit very hard, and we'll see what happens. A lot of people are coming forward. A lot of the people you would least suspect want to quit. They want to have immunity. They're asking for immunity, and probably at some point they'll be dropping, as you would say, laying down their guns. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're just continuing to go forward. Our military is the #1 in the world by far, and we are. Everything's big in my book. Venezuela was big. This is big. The original hit, Midnight Hammer, was big. Everything you view is big, but it's not considered very big by some standards, by some of our standards. We have a military like no other military that's ever been built.
So was that the imminent threat? Mr. President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. You know, they built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. It would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people. And we'll see what happens with the people. You know, they have their chance, and we've said don't do it yet. If you're going to go out and protest, don't do it yet. It's very dangerous out there. A lot of bombs are being dropped. But I would say that would be about the worst.
Do you have someone in mind right now? Because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody. But we have, I mean, Venezuela was so incredible because we did the attack and we kept government totally intact. And we have Delcy, who's been very good. We have the whole chain of command, and they've been, you know, look, the relationship's been great. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil already, and a big part of that goes to them, and a big part goes to us. And it's been great. We paid for the war many times over, and we're going to be running the oil. And Venezuela is going to make more money than they ever made, and that's great for the people. The relationship has been great. It's been seamless. Nobody's actually ever seen anything like it. If you look at Iraq, where very stupidly everybody was fired, the generals were fired, the military was fired, the police were fired, the fire departments were fired, and all of the government workers were fired. So after, you know, people would call, they had no idea. And by the way, ISIS was formed. That's where ISIS came from, all of the fired people. We don't believe in that. So we'll see what happens. But First, we have to finish off the military.
What do you think about Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi? Is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. You know, these were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
What exactly was the imminent threat, Mr. President?
Not your turn.
What exactly was?
Your turn, please.
Mr. President, are you going to take the heat off the Europeans to potentially help you? Mark Rutte called on the allies to also help you, and are you going to let? Well, you have to ask Mark Rutte. He said not as part of NATO, but to be helpful to you in this. And will you let the Europeans?
Some European nations have been helpful, and some haven't. And I'm, very surprised. Germany's been great. He's been terrific. Others have been very good, terrific. I think that the head of NATO, Mark, is fantastic. Okay, Mark Rutte. I think he's fantastic. But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases. And that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. But we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him, we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people. But they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
What is your expectation towards Germany?
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason. He made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Mr. President, what are your expectations towards Germany? What can Germany do and what should Germany do to help you in this conflict?
Well, I think they're doing it. I mean, they're letting us land in certain areas, and we appreciate it. And they're just making it comfortable. We're not asking them to put boots on the ground or anything. I mean, we're just they're a respected country. I have a very good relationship with the country. We have, in particular, now with this leader, with this new leader. I think he's an excellent leader. I had my differences with Angela. I said, you're hurting your country with immigration and you're hurting your country with energy. And we have a man sitting on my right that is, I think, pretty much the opposite of her on energy and the opposite on immigration. And I think he's doing very well.
Mr. President, commercial air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. You're seeing that right now. And a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary. Those were aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first. And if we didn't, it could have been, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated. And if we didn't, and by the way, we have massive amounts of ammunition. We have the high end. A lot of it was given away stupidly by Biden very stupidly for free. And I'm all for Ukraine, but they gave away a lot. As you know, when I give away ammunition, everybody pays for it. The European Union's paying for it. Then they can do what they want with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and that's okay. But we gave away a lot of high-end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high-end stored in different countries throughout the world. We're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt the military in my first term. The military is great. Unbelievable amount of ammunition, or munitions, as they say, we've given away to, the Wall Street Journal incorrectly covered the story when they said that it was given away to the Middle East. Not to the Middle East, it was given away to Ukraine. Very little was given to the Middle East. The Middle East would buy a lot, and some of the nations, because they're rich, they have a lot, but it was given away to Ukraine. And it just should have been done. Look, it's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. But we have a tremendous amount of munitions, ammunition, at the upper level, middle and upper level, all of which is really powerful stuff.
Will you help Americans get out of the Middle East? So will you help Americans get out?
Both of you, how worried are you that the rising prices for gas and oil are damaging the American economy and also Mr. Chancellor?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. This is, of course, damaging our economies. This is true for the oil prices, and this is true for the gas prices as well. So that's the reason why we all hope that this war will come to an end as soon as possible. And we are hoping that the Israeli and the American army are doing the right things to bring this to an end and to have really a new government in place who is coming back to peace and freedom.
Yeah. Something had to be done. And it's been 47 years. They've been killing people all over the world for a long time. They were the kings and fathers of the roadside bomb. Soleimani, we killed him last term. If we didn't, I think it might be a different story today. They would have been much stronger and smarter than they are. But they did the roadside bombs. 95% of the people lost their legs, arms, had their face wiped out, just wiped out. I've seen some young people that it's so sad to watch. And that was almost all, 95% comes from Iran and with Soleimani. Soleimani loved his favorite weapon. He loved the roadside bomb. And when you see people walking around with no legs and no arms and a face that's been blown to hell, these people, what they have to go and the way they have to live, this is Iran. When you look at the barracks, the famous barracks, when you look at the hostages, when you look at a lot of hostages, when you look at all of the problems, they were really a purveyor of terror all over the world for many, many years. And it's something that had to be done, something. And I believe that if we didn't, because I see where Congress, if I didn't do this, guys like Schumer, who are losers, the Democrats, they're losers. That's why they're not here. Guys like Schumer would say, well, you should have done this. In other words, if I did it, it's no good. If I didn't do it, they would have said the opposite, that you should have done this. But most people feel, I'll tell you what, I have never had more compliments on something I did. People felt it's something that had to be done. So if we have a little high oil prices for a little while, but as soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop, I believe, lower than even before.
Can you just clarify on what exactly the imminent threat was? Because we heard...
Mr. President.
Mr. President, how do you want to solve the conflict on tariffs between EU and US? And this question also goes, the conflict on tariffs between EU and US, how do you want to solve it?
And US and who?
European Union. How do you want to solve
Well, we won on tariffs, actually. Somebody said you actually won the case. We won on tariffs. We had a decision that was wrong. It was a very bad decision from certain standpoints. From other standpoints, a very powerful decision because it reaffirmed all the fact that we have all these various forms of tariffs that we felt right, but it totally reaffirmed it. It said you can use all of these tariffs. So we have all these vast menus of tariffs, and tariffs have made our country very rich. We have to charge tariffs to nations who play with their money. You know, they move their money up and down like a yo-yo. We have to take care of nations that have been good to us and fair to us, and we're going to take care of them. Other nations, they haven't, and we haven't let them take advantage of us. But the whole thing with tariffs is we had a decision that, like, as an example, we have a license situation, and the license is something that allows us to immediately stop all business with, nobody even knew we had this power, but we do now because of the decision. We have the right to stop all business having to do with a certain country. If a certain country is not treating us well, the president, without going to Congress, has the right to stop. Sort of interesting. I have the right to stop, but under that one law, I didn't have the right to charge them. So I have the right to license them, but I don't have the right to charge, which is frankly ridiculous. But the right was given to us by the Supreme Court. And we have the right, as an example, we talked about Spain. I could tomorrow stop, or today, even better, stop everything having to do with Spain. All business having to do with Spain, I have the right to stop it. Embargoes, do anything I want with it. And we may do that with Spain. What do you think?
Well, sir, I think we're going to talk about it with you. I know that you have a strong power that the Supreme Court clarified. We know you can use it, and if you need to use it to assure national and economic security, we'll do it.
Scott, do you have an opinion?
Sir, I agree. The Supreme Court reaffirmed your ability to implement an embargo, and as we've talked, from your first term, the Section 301s and the 232s have withheld more than 4,000 lawsuits, and USTR and Commerce are going to begin investigations, and we'll move forward with those.
And we've instituted a 15% tariff on everybody, as you know, and just used. I'll tell you, we had a couple of paragraphs written in that opinion that were really incredible. Justice Kavanaugh wrote a fantastic dissent, but in his dissent, he said what we should do, and we knew that too. We just wanted to simplify it, and for some reason, I think, very, very foolishly, the courts decided no, but they said you can do it many other ways, and that's what we're doing. And what we've done is we've gone to a very simple, straight 15% tariff. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars in our country because of tariffs. So we've taken in all of this money, hundreds of billions of dollars, and honestly, it's made us very rich as a country. Right? So it's been doing good. When will you have the full plan implemented? We have a 5-month period, up to 5 months, where we can go at 15%. And while we're doing that, as you know, we're doing the various studies and things, and we'll be coming out with different tariffs on different countries. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, sir. By the time the 5-month period has elapsed, we'll have completed investigations under Section 301, which Secretary Bessent talked about. We know there are countries out there with deals who are very interested in keeping the deals. We need to go through and investigate all these unfair trading practices, the kinds of things you talked about, and make sure that we're protecting U.S. economic security. We know there are countries.
How are we going to treat Germany?
Well,
I think you should hit them very, very hard.
They have expressed an interest. Germany's been quite constructive in wanting to move forward and be helpful. The rest of you will talk to them as well. But obviously,
I will say every single country wants to make the deal they already have. In other words, a deal that we have using the other authority, they want to make the same deal. And we'd like to see, actually, we're going to adjust it somewhat upward, actually, but they all want to stay in the deal, and so we'll probably be able to do that pretty easily.
Mr. President, what does the war mean for Ukraine? After all, Iran won't be able to deliver drones to Russia anymore. So what does this war mean to Ukraine? And having Chancellor Merz sitting next to you, whom would you call if you want to talk to Europe? And Chancellor Merz, you've just been in China. The president will be traveling.
What country are you from?
I'm from Germany.
Okay, I thought so. I could see.
So, Mr. Chancellor, you have been in China, and the president will be in China soon. Will you be talking about China as well during this visit?
We'll be talking about China, yeah. Sure.
And what about Ukraine?
I'll be going to China in a little while. Every time you meet, you talk about China. We respect China. I do. We both do, I think. But it's always a topic of conversation. We've had a very good relationship with China. We used to lose a tremendous amount of money with China, and that's no longer the case. We have a very, very good relationship with China, and we have a very good relationship with Germany. All right.
So what about
Mr. President, we've seen countries around the world, many of whom don't usually work together, working with the United States on Iran, whether it's Saudi Arabia working with the United States, Israel, Qatari shooting down Iranian aircraft, and we've also seen European countries step up. Why are we seeing such unity around the world against Iran?
That's a great point. Look, they're just evil. They're it's not the politics; it's their whole philosophy. It's their whole where they come from. It's terrible. Where they killed 35,000, I thought it was 32. Now it turns out it's much more than 35,000 people, and in some cases using machine guns with people that have no weapon. They have no weapon, and they're being machine gunned. They're being sniped from buildings. They're hitting the people with snipers right through the eyes. It's just a very evil ideology, and nobody's really seen anything like it. As I said, even the fact that they've attacked all of their neighbors, and the neighbors weren't attacking. They thought they'd maybe sit it out or what. They've hit Qatar. They've hit UAE, they've hit Saudi Arabia, they've hit Oman. They were helping us negotiate. They got hit. Everybody got hit because they're evil and they're bad. It's a bad seed, and somebody had to do it. And it should have been done sometime during a 47-year period because so much death has been caused by them, so much unbelievable death. From Germany, too. Germany's been hit. Everybody's been hit by them. It's an evil ideology. And I've never been... Look, I've done a lot of good things. So many people are saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. You see it in the streets of Los Angeles. They have thousands of people. I saw it the other day, pictures of Donald Trump. And I'm looking. I'm on the phone, probably talking to you. And I'm looking, and I see my picture. I say, oh, no, it's another, protest. I see and then I started saying, boy, they were very friendly people. And then I saw a woman hugging the picture of me. I said, what's going on? And it turned out to be these are Iranian people that live in the United States.
So many.
Thousands and thousands. You saw the rallies. And in New York, too, they had a big rally. My pictures all over the place. The fact is that people are happy what we did. And you could never, and I've always said it, you could never have had true peace in the Middle East if Iran was allowed to go, even beyond the nuclear. If Iran was allowed to have look at all the missiles they built. A lot have been now taken out by us, and a lot have been expended. But they had thousands of missiles in a fairly short period of time. And I'll go two things. The attack that we did, known as Midnight Hammer, had we not done that, Iran would have had a very powerful nuclear weapon within 1 month. We did it. It was great timing, but, and you've been able to see that, too. The other thing was Barack Hussein Obama made maybe the worst deal I've ever seen because he gave all power in the Middle East to Iran. He went the exact opposite way, and I terminated that. If I didn't terminate that deal, they would be sitting with a massive nuclear weapon 3 years ago, which would have been used already on Israel at least, and other countries also. And we wouldn't be talking about it right now. But if I didn't terminate the deal that Obama made, giving them everything, including plane loads of cash. You remember the airplane flew over there? It was a Boeing 757. There was two of them, loaded. They took out all the seats. It was loaded with green cash. So much cash that it was in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. They got all the cash from all the banks. They put it, and they flew it to Iran. I never knew a president had that power. I'm going to maybe try it sometime if it's okay. I think I'm going to do it. I'll fly it somewhere. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. 2 planes loaded from floor to ceiling, big planes, Boeing 757s, taken over there and given cash. In addition to that, he was giving them billions of dollars. But worse, he was giving them the right to have the path to a nuclear weapon. And that deal expired. A lot of people said, oh, you terminated it. Well, it was going to be terminated anyway because it expired. It gave them the right to have top-of-the-line nuclear weapon. If they had, because they're crazy, just like the people on my right during the State of the Union. I looked at them, I said, you're crazy? These people are crazy. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. All right, how about 1 or 2 more?
Mr. President.
Go ahead, please.
Chancellor Merz, you just heard that the president is thinking about punishing Spain. What are your thoughts spontaneously on this, and what can you do to,
Well, the answer on that is quite simple. We are trying to convince Spain to catch up with the 3% or 3.5%, which we agreed on in NATO. And as the president said, it's correct. Spain is the only one who is not willing to accept that. And we are trying to convince them that this is a part of our common security, that we all have to comply with this numbers. And this is 3.5 for military and another 1.5 for our military infrastructure. So Spain has to comply with that.
Spain has been very, very uncooperative. And so has UK. Now, the second one is shocking, but this is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? And they ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's and that country, UK, and I love that country. I love it. My mother was born there. I love it. My mother was born there. My father was born. Right? He knows all about my father. My father was born there. So, you know, very places that you sort of automatically very feel warmly about. But the UK, what they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible. You have the North Sea. Somebody said yesterday, what would you do if you were the UK? Open up the North Sea. They got windmills all over the place that are ruining the country, ruining the landscapes, ruining the beautiful fields. Open up the North Sea. It's one of the greatest. Think of it. They buy their energy from Norway, which gets the energy, the oil, from the North Sea. So Norway drills in the North Sea and sells it to UK. And UK has a better part of the North Sea. So open up that. And number 2, illegal immigration. They got to solve that problem. And I must say, that's not only UK. That's other parts of the European Union that have the same problem. Immigration and energy. The energy is through the roof, the highest in the world. And the immigration is, I mean, you know, look, you have places where in the UK, you have a terrible mayor of London, terrible. He's an incompetent guy. But you have Sharia courts. You don't have Sharia courts. You don't want Sharia courts. You have Sharia courts adjudicating law. So it's very simple. Immigration, very importantly, immigration and energy. And you bring it back. Otherwise, you're not going to bring it back. Okay. One more. Go ahead.
A question for the Chancellor and for you.
Please.
To the Chancellor, Chancellor Merz,
Yeah.
You've called for unity and joint force in this moment against Iran. What does that look like to you? And then, Mr. President, where is getting a deal with Russia and Ukraine on your priority list right now?
So we, as I said in Germany the last 2 days, we are supporting the United States and Israel to get rid of this terrible terrorist regime. And we are looking forward to a day after, and we have to talk about the strategy. What is following after this regime is away, and we have to strategize on this entire region. And we are having a high interest in common approach and common work and what we can do, and this is important not just for the Americans. This is extremely important for Europe and extremely important for Israel and their security. So we are really looking forward to find ways how to deal about the day after.
And as far as Russia, Ukraine, where is it on my priority list? Very high. We thought that I thought it was going to be one of the easier ones. I've settled 8 wars, and actually maybe one more than that. But minimum 8 wars, big ones, potential India, Pakistan, big wars, very important, big ones. I thought this was going to be much easier than it is. There's tremendous hatred between President Putin and President Zelensky, tremendous hatred. I've seen a lot of hatred in my life, but I think this is about top scale. I believe it's going to happen. Sometimes I blame one, sometimes I blame the other. I think it's going to happen, but it's high on my list. Not in that it affects the United States so much, because it's very far away, but last week, last week and for the last 4 weeks, actually, 32,000 soldiers died. 32,000. And it's been averaging 25 to 30,000 soldiers a month have been dying in that stupid war. And I'd love to see it ended. It's the worst that there has been since World War II.
If you can't get a deal, what will that mean for you?
All you can do is do your best. It takes 2 to tango, and they have to get along. They have to be able to talk to each other. They hate each other a lot. That has an impact. It really has an impact. It's bad for both. The saddest is that if the election weren't rigged, my election, that war would have never taken place. And you know what else wouldn't have taken place? Allowing 25 million people to pour through an open border, that wouldn't have taken place. A lot of things would have been different. But we're doing very well, and I think a big factor in this world and future factor is what we're doing right now with Iran. If we don't stop them, or if we didn't stop them, or if we didn't start, they've been decimated. But if we didn't do what we're doing right now, you would have had a nuclear war, and they would have taken out many countries, because you know what? They're sick people. They're mentally ill, sick people. They're angry. They're crazy. They're sick. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We've been listening to President Trump speak at a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the White House, his first in-person meeting with a world leader since the war in Iran began. The president revealing he might have forced Israel's hand in forging ahead with the attack on Iran, and saying just about everything has been knocked out in Iran, adding they no longer have air protection. Trump also saying he believes the worst-case scenario in Iran would be someone taking over who is, quote, as bad as the prior leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. We have senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez standing by with us as well. He's been listening. Gabe, let's start on what I mentioned there in terms of the reasoning for this war, for these strikes that we've seen, because this was something that's in direct conflict with something that we heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday. Again, as I mentioned, the president saying he may have forced Israel's hand, going on to say that he believed Iran was going on to attack first, and even saying he thought we would be attacked. Yesterday, the Secretary of State sort of said this in the inverse, that it seemed as though Israel was going to attack anyway. Walk us through what that makes you think about the origins of this attack.
Well, Savannah, there has been a lot of mixed messaging on this issue, right? You mentioned yesterday Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who, by the way, will be briefing more lawmakers today in a classified setting on Capitol Hill. He suggested that the U.S. knew that Israel was preparing an attack on Iran and figured that Iran would retaliate potentially against the U.S., and so that is why the U.S. decided to preemptively strike Iran. At least that's in the administration's view. You just heard the president there asked very directly, did Prime Minister Netanyahu drag the U.S. into this war? The president strongly denied that. He said, if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. Now, this is something that will be debated significantly by lawmakers in the coming days. Democrats are saying that this was a war of choice and that Israel should not dictate American foreign policy. Now, in addition to that, you mentioned a couple other key points, Savannah. You mentioned this operational update. Yes, the president saying that just about everything has been knocked out in Iran. He mentioned no Navy, no Air Force, no air detection anymore. And he also said that more of the leadership may have been killed in an attack today. You also mentioned the president saying, when asked about a worst-case scenario, that someone as bad as the prior regime could take over. One more thing I also want to mention, Savannah. The president was asked, and this is something that's getting more and more attention today, he was asked why wouldn't the U.S. have more of an evacuation plan for Americans trapped in the region. Just yesterday, the State Department putting out a statement saying that Americans that are in 14 countries throughout the Middle East should find a way to leave via commercial travel. Of course, the airspace, many airports across the region are closed, and so many Americans who are in that region feel trapped at this point. The president responding to that question by saying this all happened very quickly. But again, Savannah, this all comes as the White House tries to sell the decision to attack Iran to a skeptical Congress, at least Democrats, and also to Americans who right now have many questions about the reasoning to get into this war, Savannah.
And it comes as embassies are being closed in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Beirut, with Americans on the ground there unsure of how to get home, as you mentioned. Gabe, thank you very much. Let's bring in senior national security correspondent Courtney Kuby now. She can walk us through some of the military updates that we just heard there. So, Courtney, a few things that stick out to me. The information that the president has provided us with, that he says of the situation on the ground in Iran. A couple things. He says essentially everything has been knocked out. Decimated was another word that he used here, saying that they have no air protection, also no detection systems. What do we know at this point about how long Iran could keep up a fight back?
Yeah, so I think that what he means when he said they no longer have detection facilities, I think he means the air defense systems. And so basically what these are a system of radars. They're often interconnected with one another throughout the country. They're radars that then are linked up to missiles or air defense interceptors. And when an aircraft or some sort of an incoming potentially dangerous projectile comes into the area, they lock onto it, they fire an interceptor, and they're able to take it out. Now, we have seen that Israel took out a lot of their strategic air defenses back in 2024, and then even more in 2025. The U.S. also hit some as part of Operation Midnight Hammer in June of last year. But they were rebuilding some of them, and they were not completely destroyed. He specifically mentioned radars and no detection. It would make sense, Savannah, for this to have been the first phase of the U.S. military part of this, right? So what they want to do, if you think of the country of Iran, you kind of start at the outside and you move your way in. What they want to do is take out any potential dangers to the U.S. aircraft or the U.S. systems, whatever they are, that are potentially moving into the country. That starts with air defenses. We have not heard that they have all been taken out. The president saying that they have. We'll keep checking on that. He also mentioned the Navy and the Air Force. Now, we do know, according to U.S. Central Command, that at least 11 Iranian ships have been taken out in some capacity. We don't exactly know if they've all been sunk or what it is, but they are no longer operable. That doesn't mean the entire Navy, as far as we know, but again, that's another thing we'll check on now that he has said it. We do also know they've been targeting the Air Force, but not necessarily just targeting the aircraft, but also pocking up the runways, basically stopping their ability to use the aircraft that are there. All of that seems consistent. So the question is, how far have they gotten with sort of the next phase of this? And that is taking out the ballistic missile program. That's not just firing on the missiles themselves. It's going after the launchers. It's going after the production facilities. It's going after where they store them. Oftentimes they store these things deep underground in mountains. They take big, heavy bombs to actually take them out. And then they need to go after the space program, because that's really their ability to fire these missiles on a longer range. So think about it. You fire a missile, it has to go up into space, it has to go through orbit a bit, and then it has to reemerge back down at a longer distance. If they take that out, they will essentially eliminate or severely set back any ability to actually have a longer range ballistic missile. Those are the things that, according to officials we're talking to, are still underway going after those systems. And then again, the big question is, will the U.S. actually go after their nuclear program? We have not seen any of that yet, Savannah.
Courtney, very quickly before I let you go, I do also want you to give us a rundown on our own capabilities. We heard the president reference we have a massive amount of ammunition. He talked about different capabilities between them, but walk us through what we heard there.
Yeah, so he said that the U.S., I'm going to read this because he used uncommon language, that the U.S. has a lot of the, we think he means long-range systems, but he said middle and upper ammunition. It's not a common term when you talk about ammunition, so I suspect that means longer range. It's not so much the offensive ammunition, though, that's really a concern here, Savannah. It's the defensive. It's things like interceptors for Patriots and THAADs. When you talk about Iran, they're not just firing off ballistic missiles. They have tens of thousands of drones. In some cases, these one-way attack drones that are packed with explosives. They fly a long distance. They slam into a target. Those are really hard to defend against, even with U.S. Very advanced air defense systems. Sometimes they fly lower, sometimes they fly slower. That's what we are hearing some concern about, is the defensive capabilities, not the offensive. And the president really didn't differentiate between the two here when he said that the U.S. has a huge stockpile.
All right, Courtney, thank you very much for being with us. Let's now bring in Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel from Tel Aviv. Richard, I'm hoping to speak with you about the information that we got about how we could potentially move forward. I know that's a big topic with so many questions still, but one thing that we heard from the president that stuck out to me was when asked what the worst case scenario in Iran would be, he said if someone as bad takes over. He also once again spoke essentially directly to the Iranian people, though with a slightly different message this time. We've heard him tell the Iranian people to take to the streets, this time saying don't go out and protest yet. It's still dangerous because of bombs. But sort of once again, leaving an opening for the Iranian people to help fill this vacuum of leadership and figure out what happens next. What's your takeaways there?
So what you were just talking about, I also noticed that he was talking about the end game, how he sees this war changing the leadership in Iran. And he was talking very nostalgically about Venezuela, how successful that was, how a brief military operation was able to remove the Maduro and that the rest of the government stayed in place, and now both sides are making money. It doesn't seem like he has a similar vision for Iran. He's talking about how they needed to be removed, how the entire regime needs to be removed, that people should have done it a long time ago. And then when he was pressed about who might take over, as you said, he said that the protesters or people on the street or the opposition, it was never specified who exactly in Iran should take over, but that people on the ground should wait a little until the time is right, until the government is weakened, and then come to power. And he said that they had a few names, the United States had a few names of potential successors, but that they were killed. And that maybe other names that they had in mind may have also been killed. So when you take that together, it means he really doesn't have any idea who should lead Iran, or he certainly didn't make it clear who should lead Iran after the government is weakened to the point that it is no longer able to defend itself and no longer able to continue this war, leaving it open for someone in Iran to emerge from power, which he himself admits may be worse or may be better. So a tremendous amount of ambiguity about this country's future, no clarity at all about what the day after looks like for the government of Iran when the guns fall silent.
Massive open questions as this war continues to unfold. Richard Engel, continue to stay safe. Thank you very much for being with us.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.